Well, I am really honored to have with us today a gentleman whose book I have used and quoted. I think perhaps one of the best books on the market on love and respect, and that is the title of his book, Love and Respect by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. He's with us now, and he's going to be here in the area. Let me just say, if you are not signed up to be a part of the upcoming seminar with him, it's going to be October 12 and 13 at Parkway Christian Center in Grants Pass. You need to be there. Emerson, what a delight to have you with us, sir.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Well, this is wonderful. I can't tell you how much I have respected your book and used it. I'm a lay counselor. I give it away by the dozens.
We need to give you a discount.
Anyway, it's tremendous. And what led you to write this book?
Well, I pastored one church as the senior pastor for nearly 20 years and had the privilege of studying the Bible nearly 30 hours a week for the teaching ministry. I was in a college town, and I discovered something in Ephesians 5, which is the greatest treatise in the New Testament on marriage. The summary verse caught my eye. I hadn't really paid close attention to it, but I suddenly saw something there that really awakened me. I also had my PhD in family studies, and so I knew some things that were being discovered in research. In fact, the University of Washington studied 2,000 couples for 20 years, and they said, we now know the two key ingredients for successful marriages. And when those two ingredients are present, the marriage tends to succeed, and when those ingredients are not present, the marriage tends to fail. And that was a very significant finding. And they said those two key ingredients are love and respect. Well, they also got very gender specific. They discovered that when husbands and wives are in conflict, 85% of those who stonewall, who withdraw emotionally at a certain point in that conflict, is the man, 85%. Now, not all men stonewall and not all women don't. My mother stonewalled, my sister stonewalls. But 85% of those who stonewall were the men. And the women said that felt like an act of hostility. She could not imagine doing that. The vast majority of women, on the other hand, they described as criticizing and complaining. That toward the husband, they criticize and they complain, criticize and complain. And at a certain point, ongoing criticism was interpreted by the man as contempt for who he was as a person. I found it intriguing that the men began to feel disrespected, the contempt. Women began to feel this hostility, the lack of love. The reason I surfaced that is Paul said in that summary verse in Ephesians 5, this in verse 33, a husband must love his wife, and a wife must respect her husband. And I thought that echoes what the researchers have found, and it's been in the Bible for 2,000 years. So that put me onto something, and from there I began to make some discoveries that just really have helped my marriage. Sarah and I have been married since 1973, and as you have read in the book, this book has served couples across the country.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. Well, the whole subject of love and respect, when you separated it out in your book and in your seminars, it really made clear where these impasse come about in relationships, because by the time a counselor gets a couple, they're pretty much hunkered down. They can't communicate. They've reached this impasse. And once you get through all of the emotions of what brought them to that point, it really does boil down to the woman doesn't feel loved and the man doesn't feel respected.
Quite often that's the case. And we've asked 7,000 people this question. We do a lot of surveys, research. When you're in a conflict with your spouse or significant other, do you feel unloved at that moment or disrespected? 83% of the men said they feel disrespected at that moment. And 72% of the women said they feel unloved. And it's very important. We all need love and respect equally. It's crucial that people hear me. We all need love and respect equally, but the felt need during conflict at the level of intimacy is as different as pink is from blue, as male is from female, as night is from day. And we also saw a love and respect connection, that when a wife feels unloved, she tends to negatively react. She has what I call an air tank, a love tank, connected by an air hose, and when he stands on that air hose, she deflates. And when she deflates, she is going to negatively react, but she ends up reacting in a way that feels disrespectful to him. She's not trying to be disrespectful per se, but the University of Washington discovered that when a woman is upset, her eyes turn dark, the face turns sour, the hand on the hip, scolding finger, the sigh, the rolling of the eyes, the head goes back. And when estrogen kicks in, the word choice for contempt is incredible. And so she comes across in a way that appears very disrespectful to him, even though she, in effect, is saying, I have a need that only you can meet. And I'm reacting this way because I expect you to know that. All my girlfriends know why I'm reacting this way. He, on the other side, though, when he feels disrespected, he has a respect tank connected by an air hose, and when she steps on that air hose, he deflates. He reacts in a negative way. And he ends up reacting in a way that feels unloving to her. He's not trying to be unloving. He would die for her. I mean, we just saw by way of a sidebar comment in Aurora where that individual entered that theater in Colorado and killed all of those people. 4 boyfriends died immediately for their girlfriends, sacrificing their lives so that these women could live. So men aren't trying to be unloving per se. They just tend to stonewall and withdraw, which feels unloving when he feels disrespected. And thus was born what I call the crazy cycle. Without love, she reacts without respect. Without respect, he reacts without love. Without love, she reacts without respect. Without respect, he reacts, and this baby starts to spin and it gets crazy.
All right. Now, what are the first signs that a couple has reached or beginning to reach this cycle?
Well, that's a good question. I always ask the question, have you had a conflict with your spouse or anybody of the opposite sex with whom you have closeness? This applies to a son toward his mother, father toward daughter, brothers and sisters. When you've had a conflict, when suddenly the issue no longer seems to be the issue, and you see their spirit deflate, well, that's when you've stepped on the air hose, and the issue is no longer the issue. And in many of the cases, a woman is beginning to feel unloved, and even though she needs RESPECT, if you show her disrespect week after week, she'll say, you don't even love me. How can you say you love me and show me such disrespect? And so she ends up deflating because she tends to interpret the intimate relationship at the level of love. And so her spirit deflates. So too, when a wife sees her husband deflating, she in all probability needs to ask the question, or she definitely does, did I just say or do something that felt disrespectful to him? But here's what we're up against. In the culture, no one opposes the idea of unconditional love toward a woman. But when we talk about respect toward a man, women have said to me, Dr. Emerson, I have to be honest with you, I don't feel any respect for him. And it would be hypocritical for me to show respect when I don't feel it. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite. And you know, he hasn't earned respect, and everybody knows that respect must be earned. He doesn't deserve it. And he's not superior to me. And you know the dictionary says we show respect to our superiors. He is not superior to me. I'm not inferior to him. I am equal with him in the eyes of God, and I'm certainly not going to be treated like a doormat. And I'm not going to give him license to do whatever he wants to do as some way of giving some gesture that I respect him. I certainly am not going to lose a sense of myself or a sense of my identity. And I really think this is about his narcissism and his ego, and I'm not going to feed that. And I think I know what you're really up to, Doctor. You really want us to return to patriarchy and fear male dominance. But I'm not going to subject myself to that kind of emotional abuse. Whoa. But other than these things, Dr. Emerson, other than these things, I'm really open to hearing what you have to say about this.
Golly, I wish I had that. I know we recorded this, and I'm going to use that. I'm just going to play it back. That was classic, absolutely classic. So what do you do?
Well, I always ask the question at our conferences, how many of you have sons? And everybody raises their hands who has children almost. And I said, that's how your sweet daughter-in-law, who is not going to have a mean bone in her body, she really will be a loving soul. But that will be her attitude toward your precious baby boy. And she's not trying to do that, but she's been given license in the culture and in the church to have that attitude. And what's interesting is that every man I've met serves and dies for honor. We throw ourselves, you know, on a woman to protect her in the theater. We do things for honor, and we're motivated to serve and even die. And yet, the culture has said when a man says, "You're not respecting me," it's rooted in his narcissistic attitudes. And that can be, just as there are prima donnas out there, there are Jezebels out there, but we don't take the ends of the bell curve and conclude general things about all women based on that, nor should we do that toward men. Good-willed men are not egotistical like they have been profiled. In fact, men will die. One man said to his wife, "I love you so much. I love you so much, I would die for you." And she said, "Oh, Harry, you keep saying that, but you never do."
Oh, boy. The crazy cycle. You're a pastor, you've been in it. I have had couples in front of me, I've seen them in it. How do you get the cycle broken?
Well, the cycle, again, without love, she reacts without respect, and without respect, he reacts without love. And that seems to capture a great deal of the conflict when suddenly the issue isn't the issue. You know, we may be talking about money management issues, which are real, but at a certain point, his or her spirit deflates because he appears harsh, angry as he's talking about the issues of budgeting. She may say something that appears disrespectful to him, that he's not providing enough. And we see then the spirit of the other person deflate, and then we conclude, you know, if we didn't have these money problems, we would have a great relationship. And one of the points that we make, and Dave Ramsey promotes love and respect a great deal. We were on his program a while back, and Dave says that money issues are symptoms. And we agreed that love and respect issues really are the root. What happens during that conversation about the money, if he comes across in a way that's unloving, she's going to deflate on him. If she comes across as a way that feels disrespectful to him, he's going to deflate. And couples miss that. And then they conclude, you know what, it's the money that's causing us to have all these problems. No, the money is revealing our tendency to negatively react in a way that hurts the heart of the other person. A wife is vulnerable, very vulnerable, when she feels unloved. A husband feels very vulnerable when he feels disrespected. The challenge is that God made us differently. Christ said, "Have you not read, he who made them from the beginning made them male and female." And by that I mean, where a woman tends to deflate, a husband's not bothered by that. So he goes, "Oh, brother, oh, what did I say? Oh, come on, oh, good grief, now what did I do?" He dismisses her vulnerability because he doesn't have that vulnerability. And in fact, typically God gave him a strength, a natural strength, to no credit of himself, where she has a vulnerability. And that's where this becomes difficult. So too, when a husband deflates, women go, "Oh, it's all about you, isn't it? Good, it's all about you." Well, she has a natural strength in that particular area. You know, if two people are smokers and they're trying to kick the habit, they tend to be empathetic when the other maybe falls off the wagon. But what happens in the marriage relationship where she has vulnerabilities, he doesn't, and vice versa. And so we pass judgment on the other, and that's what spins us on this crazy cycle. He begins to think, you shouldn't feel unloved, and quit being so disrespectful. Well, you shouldn't feel disrespected, and quit being so unloving. And furthermore, quite often she feels unloved in the first place. She moves toward him to connect with some criticisms, maybe complaints, to vent, because that's the loving thing to do, only to be told that she's disrespectful, and she feels even more unloved. He, on the other hand, is feeling disrespected, so he withdraws because that's the honorable thing to do, to de-escalate this conflict. Let's drop it, forget it, only to be told that he's unloving and that he feels even more disrespected in the process. And so what happens is both male and female come to a point after a period of time where they know they're right. I know I'm right as the husband. I know I'm not trying to be right. I just know I am. Therefore, if I'm right, she has to be wrong. And so too, the woman says, you know, I'm not trying to be right, but I just know what I'm feeling. I'm feeling unloved. I tried to do the loving thing. He tells me I'm disrespectful, and I'm feeling even more unloved. She knows she's right. Therefore, he has to be wrong. And this is where we come in by helping couples realize she's videotaping through pink, he's videotaping through blue. Neither are wrong. They're just different.
Wow. So when they come to this realization of the impasse in the relationship, and then they make themselves available to your material, and they realize it's a love issue, it's a respect issue, how can you get them to trust one another when the love is beginning to be extended again and the respect is beginning to be reestablished again? Sometimes it'll be seen nothing more as a carrot to get what they want.
Well, there's a fine line between motivation and manipulation, and we say the key to motivating another person is meeting that person's deepest need. Now, one of the questions I always ask, does your spouse have basic goodwill? Most couples that we deal with say yes to that. Now, if there's been betrayal, if there's been adultery, you threw in the word trust. How do you trust again? But one of the things that we do, if there hasn't been some evil that's gone on, they're just on this crazy cycle because they're fighting over the money. They're fighting over when they're going to have sex. They're fighting over the in-laws visiting. They're fighting over, these are all amoral issues typically. I mean, it's not like there's some biblical violation here. It's just difference of opinion, and it matters. It's not unimportant. It's just that it's not a wicked issue. One's not doing evil because they have an opinion on this side of how they're going to manage the money, and on the other side. So one of the things that we try to help couples realize is this question: did you marry Hitler's distant cousin? And if the answer to that is no, and this person has basic goodwill, and we're talking about the movie, we're not talking about snapshots. I said, Sarah and I have our moments where we want to get nasty. She chased me around the house with my book once saying, how would you counsel somebody who is treating his wife the way you're treating me right now?
Oh, no.
Okay, so we're all going to have those moments. I'm not talking about the snapshot. So one of the things we help couples do, though, is begin to realize to the men, I say, she has goodwill. And she has a need that only you can meet. Now, she's reacting in a way that no one would react to you. No one speaks to you disrespectfully like she does. But that's not her goal. It's not a complaint. It's a compliment. She has a need that only you can meet, and she's reacting this way because you're her man. Even though the method she uses is offensive, she's not trying to offend you. And the question is, will you trust her as a good-willed woman who is simply feeling insecure, who is feeling defensive, and is not trying to offend you? And the same thing to the woman. Will you believe he's a good-willed man who would die for you? Even though he's reacting, stonewalling, which you can't imagine anybody doing at the level of intimacy, is he doing that because that's the honorable thing to do, even though it's not meeting your need for love? He's not trying to be unloving. And will you trust that he has a need that only you can meet? And did you say or do something prior to that felt disrespectful to him? And many women will always say, yes, but he should know that I didn't mean it. And I point out he can be 6'8", 300 pounds and play in the NFL, but when it comes to contempt, you can just completely flatten him. Men are very vulnerable to the disrespect and contempt. And so one of the things you have to do is ask yourself, is he reacting this way because he's trying to be unloving? Or did I say something prior to that that felt disrespectful? And will I trust his heart that he's trying to say to me, I have a need that only you can meet? And I'm reacting this way because I expect you to decode that.
Do you suggest a timeout or a separation sometimes?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Well, again, timeout always. You know, when the University of Washington found that when men are in these conflicting moments, that's why they say drop it, forget it, because when their heartbeats are at 99 beats per minute, they're in warrior mode. And when they're in warrior mode, they've got to fight or flight, and that's why men want to exit. Now, timeout is different, though, than separation. My dad attempted to strangle my mother to death. When I was little, I witnessed that, and Mom physically left the home. If you're in a violent situation, if you're in harm's way, absolutely, separation is a must. But I don't encourage a separation unless there is a potential harm. My belief is that people are not making mistakes in being with the person they're with. They have a misunderstanding. We both speak different languages. And the issue isn't the failure to communicate. The issue is that we don't have mutual understanding. He speaks a respect talk. She speaks love talk. And once we reintroduce an understanding of those vocabulary words, if he said, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be unloving, you can show a lot of emotion, but if you use the word unloving, I'm not trying to be unloving, I don't know how to deal with this, but this is the third time you backed into the garage and it's costing me money. You know, she'll engage that. Or if she says, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I'm just feeling insecure right now and I'm mad and I want to speak disrespectful, but I'm not trying to dishonor you, I'm just trying to connect with you, I'm confronting to connect, I'm not trying to confront to control. If you use the vocabulary of respect, or I'm not trying to dishonor you, you're a better man than he is in that argument, probably, and he'll soften and he'll stay engaged.
Wow. All right, so what can people expect the 2 days in October when you're here?
We're going to help them get off that crazy cycle. We're going to answer 3 questions. Why do we negatively react to each other? And that's the crazy cycle. Without love, she reacts without respect. Without respect, he reacts without love. The energizing cycle is going to answer the question, how do we motivate another person? His love motivates her respect, and her respect motivates his love. And we're going to define what love is. Most men have heard some definition of this, but we're going to help them see it in a deeper way. But women have no idea what we're talking about. Even now, those who have been watching or listening have no idea. I don't even know what you're talking about, Emerson. And we're going to help you at the conference understand what we mean here and how we want your sweet daughter-in-law to treat your precious boy. We're going to share with you what will motivate your son. And then the third part is, what do we do if my spouse isn't responding? You know, and that can be all the way from they're just stubborn, or, you know, they're committing adultery, but that there is some degree of hope. And we also encourage singles to come. I had an 84-year-old widow attend, and I asked her, why are you here as an 84-year-old widow? And she said, well, Dr. Emerson, you never know.
Dr. Emerson, you're a delight. Thank you for your time. I value it greatly. I consider it an honor to have talked to you after all these years, and especially with the success of this book. We look forward to being with you October 12 and 13 in Grants Pass, and look forward to seeing you then.
God bless you.